All right, what's going on, YouTube? Hooked on Football Podcast. We are back for another episode / podcast. Um, Going over Week 4 college football. Week 4 is a week like we haven't seen in literally probably a couple years. This has got to be one of the best weeks of the college football season for this year, and honestly, probably in the past two. I don't know if they've stacked up to this week. This week is going to be crazy. We have 10 different games we are breaking down. You might have noticed I am flying solo right now. We're gonna have Michael coming to join us in the latter half or latter portion of this podcast. So right now I'm gonna be giving you a couple of games. We have 10 games, so please stay tuned. But starting off, we have on the banner, you see it right there. We have a Friday game, 6:00. We got Wisconsin at Purdue. So Whiskey comes in as a 6-point favorite against Purdue. And really, here's the thing with Wisconsin. They're a team really that's kind of fell off. Beginning of the season, a lot of hype. Everybody's favorite to win the East, Big Ten East, or majority of people's favorite. And they kind of dropped the ball. They lose to Washington State, which we'll be talking about here later on in the podcast. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But then, there are other games. I'm forgetting their other matchups, but they were not really dominant. They won double digits, but not really dominant performances. So I think Wisconsin and Luke Fickell are desperate to get some momentum going. However, on the other side, we have Purdue. So Purdue comes off a just horrendous game against the Syracuse Orange. They have 11 penalties for 127 yards. A lot of those were pass interference calls. They also had 4 turnovers, which is never good. Historically, when you look at this matchup, Purdue and Wisconsin, Wisconsin's been able to run the ball on Purdue. 311 rushing yards has been their average in the last 5 meetings. So it'd really be huge here if Braylon Allen, Wisconsin's running back, could get going here. He's had a little bit of a slow start to start the season, and not all of that has been his fault. A certain amount of that you got to put on the O-line. So O-line's got to come out dominate the line of scrimmage from the beginning to give him a chance. But really, I think that's Wisconsin's best bet, is establish that running game, just kind of classic approach to the game, get the running game to open up the passing game for Tanner Mordecai. And again, going on the lines of Tanner Mordecai, Purdue secondary has been bad too. Has not been good. If you watch the Syracuse game. So I do think this is a Big Ten matchup. I think this is going to be a battle. It's tough to imagine Purdue playing worse than how they played against Syracuse. I think Purdue has a lot going for them. I think Hudson Card, Purdue's quarterback, is a great quarterback, and I really think he can keep them in any game. I also think their coach, Ryan Walters, is going to be a very, very good coach. I think he's going to for sure learn from the mistakes his team made and himself too versus Syracuse. And I think they're going to come out a little more polished against Wisconsin. So really tough to pick here. I think, though, that Purdue covers for sure the 6-point spread. I think it's going to be a little closer. I could see it being a field goal game. But I don't know. I think I like Wisconsin here with the win. Moving on to Saturday. That's kind of the real big matchup of tomorrow. Friday, I think Virginia's playing, but can't remember who they're playing. So we will not look at that one. Moving on, we have number 22 UCLA at number 11 Utah. This game, I mean, you have the best rushing team in the Pac-12. UCLA, actually, they're third nationally. They rush for 270 yards per game. And you also have Utah's defense, who is ranked 10th nationally in run defense. So, you're going to have a pretty interesting matchup just along the lines of there. You have, oh my goodness, I hope I don't slaughter his name, but you have Laiatu Latu. He is, I want to say he's number 15 for UCLA. Just a dominant defensive player. He's been towards the top of PFF ranking for defensive player of the week every week so far. I think he had like a pick six as a defensive end edge rusher. So that's going to be another really good matchup to see how UCLA's line goes against Utah's season O-line too. I don't know. It's gonna be pretty interesting. I do know though that Bryson Barnes, Utah's quarterback, is one of the slowest quarterbacks in the sense of getting the ball out on time. And I know UCLA has a lot of quarterback hurries too. So something to watch out for. I don't know if, honestly, I haven't been watching Utah's game as closely if Nate Johnson is playing. I know he's a lightning quick quarterback for them, but definitely something to watch out for. UCLA, though, they have 27 tackles for loss this season. Again, just a very, very dominant defense. UCLA, they also have a freshman in Dante Moore. He's solid. He's promising. But also with that, though, he's young. So look for him to make some mistakes against a very, stellar defense in Utah, and a very physical one too. So in this game, 4.5 points. Utah's favored. And at Utah, gosh, this is a tough one. I think I do like Utah with the spread here, but they're gonna really have to earn it because UCLA is no joke. UCLA is a great team. The over-under is, I don't have it on the screen here, but the over-under is at 52.5. A kind of interesting fact was that since 2020, all 8 times UCLA has faced a top 25 ranked team, the game has gone over. At least 65 total points were scored in all 8 games. But, however, I think, though, with you look at 2 pretty great defenses here, this could be a defensive showdown. So, I think that statistic's going to end here in 2023. I don't see 65 points being scored. I don't think Utah's offense is capable of scoring that many points and keeping it an even ball game with UCLA. So if it's that many points, then UCLA for sure is winning. So Battle of the Pac-12 there. Moving on, then we have BYU at Kansas. So I think that BYU, besides the Colorado State game last week, I think BYU Arkansas had to be one of the best games to watch last week. It was really an unbelievable game that went down to the wire. It started out, Arkansas just came out and punched BYU in the mouth. If you would have been watching, maybe you were watching, it was kind of like, oh, yeah, this is what happens. SEC versus, well, I guess now Big 12, but I can't remember what BYU was in, Mountain West. Can't remember. But, they come out right away, 50-yard TD run by the Razorbacks. BYU gets it. Arkansas has a dominant 3-and-out. BYU punts it. Arkansas then returns that punt for a touchdown. And it just really looked like all Arkansas early 14 rip. But, I mean, from there, BYU comes battling back. As you may have seen the end. BYU ends up winning that game. But, they showed great toughness. And they won in Fayetteville too, which is no easy feat either. That's a hard place to play. BYU, I think, they have 2 really great backfield guys. They got, to start out, LJ Martin, their running back. He's a freshman, but he looked really good against Arkansas. He had a couple great runs. Keaton Slovis, I want to say that's how you pronounce his name, is a guy who he has great pocket presence. He knows how to manipulate the pocket. He had some great throws again on against Arkansas. He helped really lead that team or lead the Cougars to a victory. But up front for them, I think BYU might have the best left tackle in college football. I cannot pronounce his name, but he is number 78. He's 6'6", 320, and he gets downhill. If you watch him, he's incredibly light on his feet. He's almost lead blocking for LJ Martin on some of those sweeps. He's coming through, and he's almost leading the way, keeping up with LJ Martin. So it's gonna be interesting for sure to see how Kansas responds to that. But BYU in general, they just have some playmakers. They had a wide receiver and tight end make some crazy. They had some one-hand catches, just insane plays. BYU is just one of those teams that is not going to get national attention, but year in and year out, they have a solid, really good program, great coach. Can't remember his name right now, but just a really good coach. But then on the other side, you have Kansas, which is a program that is kind of turning around in front of our very own eyes, thanks to Lance Leipold. You have Jalen Daniels, who is one of the most exciting and dynamic quarterbacks in the NCAA as we speak, which is saying a lot with this quarterback class this year. I watched him, just absolutely tear Illinois' defense apart into pieces. It was just an absolute whooping. He made the Illinois defense look NAIA. It was bad. So I don't know. BYU's definitely going to have their hands full. The defense is going to have their hands full with Jalen Daniels making plays. I do think, though, BYU's defense is definitely solid. Their offense may be a little better, but their defense did make a huge stand at the end of the game to hold Arkansas. I think it was almost like, I think they held them. The last two plays they forced a fumble, and then I wasn't exactly sure what happened, but then the last play they had pretty much a sack. KJ Jefferson, Arkansas quarterback, was able to throw it forward. I think it was a legal pass anyway, but they ended up winning. So there's that. But on a serious note, though, with Kansas, they do need to get the run defense going. They have yet to play a good offense this season. They played Illinois, and then they played some other small schools. They've also struggled against mobile quarterbacks, but Slavis, I hope I'm saying his name right. I don't think that's gonna be a problem. He's not really a scrambler, as you'll see if you watch the game on Saturday. So that shouldn't be too big a worry. Another noteworthy stat, though, Kansas defense did have 6 sacks against Illinois, just to kind of show you the woodshedding the Jayhawks put on the Fighting Illini. The last fun fact of that game, though, something to look out for. The game's not engaging enough already. It is a family affair. You have Quentin Lassiter of KU. He's a DB. He will be lining up against his brother, who is Darius Lassiter, who is a wide receiver at BYU. So should be something fun to watch there. You got brother on brother going at each other. But, to bring it back, in summary of this game, Kansas 8.5. I think that's a little too steep. I know it's in Lawrence, but what I saw, very impressed with BYU. Can they put it together 2 weeks in a row on the road? I don't know. That's a lot to do for especially a college team. But I don't know. I think BYU's discipline. I think they're going to be in the ball game. I think 8.5 is too much. So, like I said in the beginning of the video, we're going to be adding in Michael. So Michael's going to come in and help us with these next 4. Or actually, no, we got way more than that. We got about seven more games. So we're going to bring on Michael here to the stage, and we can we can start with him with our next game, which is number 4 Florida State at Clemson in Death Valley. This is probably the game I have. I have decent information about, but probably the least information. I don't know if you want to start this one, Michael, or would you want me to jump in? You can chime in.
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I can't get my camera to work. I don't know why my phone's not linking up to my computer, but
yeah,
yeah, it's the crappy webcam on my laptop, but oh well.
Yeah.
So I think Florida State at Clemson. Kind of weird that it's a noon kick. I don't know if they were like forced to kick at noon, or you know what I mean, because Clemson's got such a good environment at nighttime, but
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like too many good games, networks. Oh, did I freeze?
No. It's all good.
Really? My screen's frozen in front of me.
Yeah, no, I still see you.
Okay. Anyways, Clemson's got a really good environment at nighttime. I think Clemson could be kind of hungry for after their week 1 loss to Duke. I think they could be kind of hungry for a revenge spot here, but I don't know. Florida State's also been getting dogged on pretty hard because they didn't look very good last week against Boston College. I think in this spot, I would probably still favor Florida State, even though, like I said, I think there's Death Valley is a tough place to play. I think Clemson's playing.
Oh, I guess we lost Michael. He's having some internet issues clearly over there. But all right, we'll let him jump back in here. But yeah, to kind of piggy off what he was saying there, I don't know. I think Florida State is. I think they still are. They're still going to win this game. I think somewhere deep inside, they have. Got a cat fight going on. I think somewhere inside they still are that team that beat LSU. I think LSU is legitimately a top 5 team. As they showed last week, they just walloped Mississippi State. But another factor here, going into Death Valley is a place where the Seminoles just don't win. In general, I guess Florida State really just doesn't win against Clemson, period. Last time they won, I think, was close to 10 years ago. So it's been a very long time. You could say Clemson's kind of in Florida State's head a little bit, but I'm not sure. It's been a while since Florida State has had this talent going down into Death Valley. Clemson, though, like Michael was saying, Clemson's going to be hungry. They're trying to prove to the world they're still with the top dogs. I think also, you give Lincoln Riley's little brother, who is the OC. I'm forgetting, but he's a Riley. He's an OC. You give him a little bit of time to develop here with Cade Klubnik. I think the performance is going to be a little better. So I think Sweeney's going to have them fired up for sure, ready to play. I think it's going to be a war too. I don't think Clemson's just going to bow down certainly at all to Florida State, but Florida State definitely has to bring a better product to the fiasco they had against Boston College. That was a horrible game for them. I do question too, though, we got Michael back in here. I do question with Florida State if Jordan Travis, if he is going to be healthy. He went down, I think it was second, third quarter, and it looked like the guy got shot in the arm. And really, I looked on Twitter, and I think Mike Norvell made a small comment about how he's not really worried about, Jordan Travis moving forward. So I really don't think it was anything. I'm sure though it was probably like a stinger or something. He did land pretty awkwardly, but appears to be nothing serious. But did you have anything, Michael, you want to add in before you cut off there?
Yeah, no, I'm filming from a hotel room, so I'm not in my normal spot. I'm
Yeah.
having a lot of tech. I don't know what happened there. Just like my screen, just like it froze. Like I said, that's why I asked if you could hear me, and then my screen just blacked out and kicked me out of everything. No, all I was gonna say is I think both teams have a lot to play for. I think Clemson's playing kind of for a revenge spot because if they beat Florida State, that kind of gets their season back on track.
Uh-huh.
Or it's a big win to rally behind, and then you can still win the ACC. Florida State, though, again, I don't know. You could argue they're playing because everyone dogged them for not playing well against BC last week. I'd favor Florida State here, even though it's at Clemson. I think it helps personally that it's not a night game at Clemson because I think that would be that much tougher of an environment.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you say something about Jordan Travis, and I know he kind of got dinged up last week. I don't know.
Yeah.
He acted like his wrist was going to fall off at the end of the first half, and then he was like, he was playing pretty well in the second half. So like, how serious
Yeah.
was his injury? I don't know. Maybe it was, and he's just really tough. But he looked okay for most of the second half. He threw the ball all right. So assuming he's fine, or assuming he's 85, 90%, I would take Florida State here. I think they're is more talented this year. I think they're better than Clemson, and I think Florida State's problem is not going to be these high profile games. I think Florida State's problem is going to be showing up at Boston College. Like those are the types of games that historically they've struggled to get up for. So I would take Florida State here.
Yeah, I agree. I think you bring a good point there because I did touch on when you cut out there about how LSU is or Florida State somewhere deep down, but despite what they showed on last Saturday, they're still that team that absolutely just whomped LSU by 20. So I do agree though. I think there's possibly some leadership issues there with not necessarily the coaching staff, but maybe players not always being motivated for those small games. But I do agree with you. I think Florida State pulls it out, but Clemson gives them everything they have. Moving on, another huge game. We got number 19 Colorado at number 10 Oregon. Oregon coming in as a 20.5-point favorite. Huge line there. It's really hard for me to justify that line, but before I get into that, I want to kind of break down Oregon. And even before I break down Oregon, there has been a little headline moving into this game. It seems like there's always something when there's a Colorado game. I don't know if you've seen it, but Dan Lanning, Oregon's coach, has been quoted, and I mean, media's running around with this like it's fire. But he kind of blasted the Colorado program. Are you familiar with this?
What do you say?
So basically, in gist, he said that some reporter, they're trying to get. They're kind of smart with this. They're trying to get a big reaction. They kind of worded a question about Colorado and how they're leaving the Pac-12 and like asking, "Are you going to miss Colorado?" And Dan, I mean, he was pretty deadpan, just like he said. He was just like, "No." He's like, "What have they done for the Pac-12?" And like they haven't done anything. And people are saying like I don't think Deion's came out and like said anything, but people are saying that Colorado is now going to use this for ammunition. And apparently Dan Lanning's came out since then and said he wasn't talking about Deion's team. So there's a little bit of speculation there. So I don't know if it's going to play into any impact. I mean, Deion, it seems like he really likes the underdog story, but kind of, getting into Oregon, they have just an absolutely solid O-line. They have, I believe, I want to say that their O-line has allowed like the least pressures in all of college football. Again, they haven't.
Yeah, Bo Nix.
What's that?
Oh, sorry. My connection is like crap. It's like cutting in and out. So it sounded like you took a pause. No, I was just gonna say Bo Nix has only been sacked once this year.
Yeah. So I mean, just incredibly solid. They played Hawaii last week, which Hawaii's Hawaii out of Hawaii too, which is just a whole nother team. So not good. But they did play Texas Tech at Lubbock, which is an incredibly tough place to play. So they've been tested a little bit. I think that they have potential to own the line of scrimmage on Saturday. with a very weak Colorado defensive line. I think behind that offensive line though, you have Bo Nix, who's having a Heisman type year. He gets the ball out quick. He's actually one of the fastest in the Pac-12 to get the ball out. If you notice that on Saturday, he gets it out like that. They have two really good running backs too in Bucky Irving. He's averaging just around 8 yards per carry. They also have Jordan Jams, who's averaging 7.4 yards per carry. And then actually they have a third guy, Noah Whittington, who's averaging 8.4 yards per carry. He has the least amount of carries, but he's got 12 carries for 110 yards. So really triple threat there, which is not great for Colorado because they are the worst defensive rushing team in the Pac-12. They allow on average 170 yards per game rushing, which isn't great news for Colorado because Oregon is the second best offensive team in the Pac-12. They average just around 600 yards. Where I think it gets interesting though is the pass defense. Oregon has the best pass defense by far. They only allow 158 yards passing, unbelievably. But I don't know. I think it's gonna be, this game's gonna kind of be predicated on what Oregon team shows up. Is it the same Oregon team in Lubbock that didn't really necessarily look that great, or is it going to be this Oregon team that plays against the Hawaiis and whoever their first week, or I wasn't at Portland State, they won 81-0. So I mean, you could probably argue too, a lot of their stats might be inflated because of those games where they just absolutely ran it up. But no, it's certainly interesting one going into Eugene, right?
Yeah,
Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene.
Okay.
So one thing really quick, because you said the thing about that Lanning said.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that sounds different, but just there's so much stupid stuff that gets said about Colorado. Like I saw a tweet yesterday where Sports Center had a quote from Tom Brady talking about Shedeur Sanders because Shedeur has got like a Rolls Royce or something like that. And it was like, the clip was, or the quote was something like, Tom Brady says that Shedeur Sanders needs to spend more time in the film room and less time in his Rolls Royce Phantom or something like that. Like, what do you think? Literally like acting like Tom Brady was taking shots at him. The clip was literally from like Tom Brady's podcast with Dion and Shedeur, and he says it in a joking way. And like Dion and Shedeur are both like laughing and having a good time. But like Sports Center clipped it up and made it sound like Tom Brady was taking shots at Shedeur for, being cocky. So anyways, all I say is like, I just don't even look at that stuff. I think it's all so stupid. It's just literally they're just putting it out there to generate content. But my other thing with the whole Lanning comment is like how like Colorado's basically been like this underdog, Cinderella, playing on emotion. Like eventually I feel like that runs out. You can't play your whole season like that. You know what I mean? Like eventually like the motivation, just every game so far they've played has been so emotional, such a chip on their shoulder, all this type of stuff. So I feel like eventually that just runs out. You know what I mean? Like you can only milk that for so long. But I feel like Vegas is daring everybody to obviously Vegas wants everyone to take the under. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's just such a huge line. I feel like they're just like daring everybody. So I don't know. I think to take Colorado to cover. I kind of think Oregon's going to give Colorado a bit of a whooping here. I just think Colorado, 3 super emotional games. They're not going to have Travis Hunter, which is a really big loss.
Yeah.
And I think Oregon's pretty good. It's at Oregon. I guess Colorado played that one game. I guess they played at TCU to start the year, but this is different. Oregon's a lot better. Oregon's a tougher place to play. TCU's not a tough place to play. So I like Oregon in this spot. By 20.5, I don't know. I probably wouldn't touch that, but I do think Oregon will win. I think they'll win fairly handedly. I thought that's a good stat you had about Oregon's pass defense, which makes a lot of sense because, again, you and I talked about this. First off, Colorado State last week, that Colorado to go to double overtime to beat. I know it was a rivalry game and emotions were high, but like that's not a very good team. Washington State killed Colorado State. And like if you watch, like you and I both watched that entire Colorado-Nebraska game, Colorado was really struggling against Nebraska's defense in the first half. Nebraska's offense was just awful. They just kept giving the ball back to Colorado, and eventually Colorado blew the game open. But
Mhm.
I just think Colorado maybe has gotten a touch over. Well, they've definitely gotten overhyped at this point because they get all the headlines. And I do think the Deion story is cool, and I'm not trying to like poo-poo it, but they just get so much attention and all that. And
Yeah.
I think they're just at the end of the day, I think they're kind of a middle of the road football team, which is an incredible turnaround from being a 1-11 team last year. But I think this is a bit of an eye opener for them at Oregon. I think Oregon wins this one pretty handedly.
Yeah. I think really the only chance that Colorado has in sticking around the ball game is if they can get their run game established. I know Colorado though they're literally I think they are the worst Pac-12 team in rushing. They average 60 yards per game rushing, so not going to get it done. I know Shadur Sanders. He's not really a scrambling QB. He doesn't really rush too much, but there is potential there if Colorado is watching the tape against Texas Tech. The Texas Tech quarterback Tyler Shaw, who actually he played at Oregon for a couple of years. I didn't even know, but he inexplicably he ran for 102 yards, which is just kind of like something he does not do. I think he had like 30 yards against Wyoming, and then he had 0 yards against Tarleton State, who they played. So, and that was something that really hurt the Ducks too. He was kind of killing them with his rushing. So maybe I don't know, Shadur can get some scrambling going. That might help them a little bit, but no, I do think I agree with you. I think Oregon can cover this spread. But moving on to probably a little bit of a lower profile game here. Going to Oklahoma State, going to Ames. Iowa State is a 3.5-point favorite, unbelievably, after that showing against Ohio. We have over under again, looking like typical Iowa State fashion, 36. I don't know, Michael. Do you want to start out with this one here, breaking down this showdown?
Yeah. First off, I'm surprised Oklahoma State's so bad this year under Van Gundy. Just Mike Gundy. I just feel like he's like the second most tenured coach in FBS. I feel like he kind of built Oklahoma State into an Iowa type program, like relative to the fact that like you could just count on them to get 6, 7, 8 wins a year, but they are clearly not good this year.
Which
what are you gonna say?
No, so not to cut you off, but I think that we might be getting a little bit. We might be putting ourselves. We might be a little bit prisoners of the moment after this. I mean, it was a shellacking South Alabama. That's inexcusable, losing to 33, almost getting shut out by Alabama at home.
Yeah, that was at Oklahoma State.
Jesus. No, but if you look the week before, though, they did win by double digits against Arizona State. Now, it's Arizona State, but there was some hype for Arizona State to kind of have a little bit better year there. There was some thought that they could maybe sneak up on a couple teams in the Pac-12, and they won by double digits. But and I'll let you keep going here, but I know after seeing a game like last week, it just seemed like a really down week for a lot of teams, but just, inexcusable losing to South Alabama. I know people are saying, I've seen Oklahoma State fans talk about how South Alabama is a good program, but Big 12, that's inexcusable.
Yeah. Well, here's something on Arizona State. They beat Southern Utah 24-21 week 1. Lost Oklahoma State by 12 week 2, and then got shut out by Fresno State 29-0 last week. So,
yeah,
just throwing it out there. So I get I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying the results thus far haven't been great, but I don't know. Look, Iowa State, obviously, it hasn't been a good start for Iowa State either. Loss on the road at Ohio. worst loss of the Matt Campbell era. I still believe in Matt Campbell. I know he's gotten a lot of crap online and all that stuff, but I don't buy it. He got dealt a tough hand this season. I don't know. To me, this game's kind of a toss up, to be honest, because like Iowa State's not that good. But here's the thing: Iowa State does play good defense. So they're going to give Oklahoma State issues. Oklahoma State, I saw last week. I don't know what the quarterback situation is, but I noticed last week they played Gundy's kid, Gunner.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a different quarterback at Arizona State the week before. And Gunner was 9 of 18 for 64 yards. All I'm saying is if Gunner is playing against Iowa State this week, if he thought South Alabama's defense was good, Iowa State's defense is actually legit. That's probably a top 25 defense in the country. So
No,
here's all to
20, top
yeah,
15.
here's all yeah. I was being conservative, but here's all I'll say is if Gunnar Gundy is playing quarterback this week for Oklahoma State on the road at Iowa State, I expect very low scoring. Definitely an under on 36, maybe an under anyways, because again, Iowa State just plays really low scoring games these days. But it's just a tough one to predict because Iowa State is just unreliable. The offense is pretty bad. They can't run the ball at all, which is a huge issue. I will say at the end of the Ohio game, they did have a couple nice drives. Rocco Beck, their new quarterback, looks like he's getting a little more confident. And when they let him kind of air it out downfield a little bit, they put together one really nice touchdown drive at the end of the Ohio game. So I'd like to see Iowa State offensively just get more aggressive. They play really conservative. And I think that was kind of how Matt wanted to do it. I think he knew they didn't have much. So it was just like, let's dink and dunk. But they can't run the ball. And so you can't run the ball and then you just dink and dunk throwing the ball. Like it's just you know what I mean? They hand the ball off on 1st and 10. Now it's 2nd and 12. You dink and dunk. Okay. Now it's 2nd and 9 or 3rd and 9. You know what I mean? Like that's just not so. I don't know. I'd like to see Campbell get aggressive this week. I think he might. I think after everything last week, I think he might change it up a little bit. He might try something new. So I don't know. I'd have to do more research. So I see you starting a quarterback. If it's Gunnar Gundy, I think I like Iowa State and I like the under. If it's the other quarterback, I don't know who wins. I say toss up, but probably still favor the under.
The over under. I mean, it seems like obvious. However, though, I think Oklahoma State's defense could be one of the worst. Definitely, probably Big 12, possibly Power 5. I saw they lead the nation in missed tackles. They have 51 missed tackles this year. So I don't know. You could get Beck and I forgot the running back's name, but they could slip some tackles and possibly run that score up just because of how bad.
Yeah, the O line has to block. That's Cartevious Norton's Iowa State's running back, and he is.
Yeah,
I mean, every yard he's gained this season, he's gained on his own. Like because that offensive line doesn't block for him. It's basically like they all stand aside and he has to like fight off the defense. So any yard he's got this year, he's earned. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good stat. Maybe this will be a good week. Maybe this will be one of the few weeks this season Iowa State can play some offense. It's hard to say though. I don't know. They only scored 7 points against Ohio last week. So
yeah, I think. Well, bottom line though, you have two programs that are trying to like kind of come out and prove themselves after humiliating weeks against a group of 5 schools. I think that's kind of the bottom line. So I don't know. I think you could be looking at a pretty competitive football game. Both teams kind of forget their identity and just kind of go at it, but
yeah,
we'll see. But moving down the list here, moving to we got number 15, Ole Miss at number 13, Alabama. Alabama coming in at a touchdown favorite. Jalen Milroe, if you haven't seen, he is back at quarterback. Really kind of question the mindset of Alabama's offense coordinator, Tommy Rees, kind of what he was thinking with playing Buckner and Simpson at South Florida. Just kind of an really odd game, unusual game for Alabama too. I think they won 17-3. So very not a typical Alabama fashion win. I think though there's no question that Jackson Dart, Ole Miss quarterback, is the premier QB in this matchup. He's a dual threat. Yes, Georgia Tech is god awful. but he had 136 rushing yards against Georgia Tech last week. So take that with what you will. But I don't know. I like Alabama in this one, honestly. I think the world's counting out Alabama and Saban. They're saying he's down for the count. And I think really too, I don't think Saban, he might start to be on his way down, but I don't think there's any way that he loses to two of his former coaches. He already lost to Sark. I don't think he lose to Lane Kiffin. I don't think that's going to happen. And Lane Kiffin, when you look at him, he doesn't win big games like this, in my opinion. The last time Ole Miss won in Tuscaloosa was 8 years ago. Ole Miss is historically they're 10-54 against Alabama. But so I'm sticking with my prediction. I think Alabama's going to cover this. I think they kind of bounce back and kind of put themselves back on the radar. However, if Alabama does drop this, I think it is officially time to hit the panic button in Tuscaloosa. You're looking at Alabama potentially dropping out of the top 25, and in the Saban era, I don't know if that's ever been a thing. But no, I'm sticking to my guts here. I like Alabama with the spread.
Yeah. Who's quarterback? Is Jalen Milroe back at quarterback this week?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference. I don't really get the thinking why the whole Buckner and they played the other guy last week. Like that just didn't. I don't understand. And like I think that has the potential to backfire. Like because I think
you take him out of his rhythm.
Well, yeah, and you mess with his confidence because he plays against Texas. He did some good things against Texas, but he also did some bad things. You know, he didn't play a great game. But then you pull him and you play these other. I don't even know if he played last week, and then you're going to go back to him this week in this huge game. I don't know. I just don't really like it. I mean, I know Nick Saban knows way more about football than I ever will, but I just don't really like it. Like again, just from like a confidence thing. It's a weird decision to me, and I don't know. I actually am a little more bullish on Ole Miss than you are. They've looked pretty good. They had a really good win against Tulane on the road a couple weeks ago, which I thought had the potential to be a tricky game. A lot of people really like Tulane. I mean, I probably agree it's tough to pick against Alabama in this spot because Ole Miss doesn't really have a reputation for winning these big games. But I don't know. Alabama seems a little down to me. How good is Texas? You know what I mean? Like, how do we really know how good Texas is? Texas has looked really shaky in their two games where they didn't play Alabama. They barely got by Wyoming last week. You know, they looked pretty mediocre in their opener against Rice. Yeah, they played good against Alabama, but okay, what's Alabama done? Alabama, week 1, beat Middle Tennessee, gets beat by 10 at home by Texas, and then goes on the road and barely beats. Well, I mean, they beat South Florida 17-3. And I know weather conditions and stuff weren't ideal. I'm just saying, I don't know. Like, it seems like maybe Alabama's not that great this year. Like, we're just assuming they're good again, but they're going to have to prove it. So I think this is a big game for them. You know what I mean? Like, if they, like you said, if they drop this game, they go to 2-2, that's like, that's like wheels are falling off at Alabama. I mean, that's going to be a huge issue. So it's definitely a must-win game. I feel like that line's a little high. I almost think I would like Ole Miss to potentially cover. I think Ole Miss is going to hang tough. They're kind of a team that's been on the cusp of breaking through. And like I said, I'm not convinced this Alabama team is like that good. They're going to have to really prove it to me this week. If they're like a legit top of the SEC team. Right now, I think the two best teams in the SEC are Georgia and LSU. So Alabama's going to have to prove it. I like Ole Miss. I like their quarterback. And like I said, I think Alabama's a little shaky, and I think their confidence is a little shaken, and they don't really know where they're at quarterback. Tommy Reese is the new offensive coordinator. Like, the offense to me just doesn't really have a lot of rhythm at the moment. So anyways, I probably, it's hard to like go against Alabama in this spot, like to win on the money line, but I could see Ole Miss sneaking in there and covering and really making it a competitive game.
All right, moving on to Pullman, Washington. We have what I think is probably the most underrated game of the day, other than BYU Kansas tied with that game possibly. But you got number 14 Oregon State going to Wazoo, Washington State, number 21. This game kicks off 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central Time. But just to start, Washington State they're 56-48 historically against Oregon State. Oregon State did win last year, 21-10. I'm sorry. But really, you got to love both these teams. It's kind of these teams versus the world right now. They're kind of being subjugated as they're not Power 5 worthy. So they're sort of playing with that chip on their shoulder that conferences are kind of looking at them and saying, "Yeah, you're not coming in here with us." So they're definitely kind of got that us versus them mentality. But to start with Washington State, Washington State head coach Jake Dickert, he has his guys in gear certainly. Cam Ward's one of those Pac-12 quarterbacks that's getting like the not as much media attention, but he should be right there up with all the guys. He has 9 touchdowns so far this year with 0 interceptions. I could argue too that I know I always see on the media and social media that everybody says how complete Oregon State is, which I do agree that they do look, if you watch them, they do look like a complete team. But on paper, and things are always different on paper than they are in real life, but I could say that Washington State's the most complete team. In all their 3 games so far, they killed Colorado State. And as you saw last week, Colorado had big issues with Colorado State. I know a little different dynamic to the game, rivalry, whatever. But, I mean, they won 51-24, won by 25, 26. Cameron Ward absolutely just shredded the Rams defense. He threw 451 yards passing. He also threw 4 TDs, so he was no joke in that game. They then the next week they stay in Pullman. They play Wisconsin, who's got all this hype. They beat Wisconsin 31-22. Tough game down the stretch. Wisconsin was kind of knocking at the door, but they stayed strong, beat Wisconsin. And then last week, they just absolutely destroyed Northern Colorado, 64-21. On the other side of the ball, we got Oregon State, who they had, and like I said earlier, just week 3 was just kind of a down week for a lot of teams, just not playing well. And I don't know what was going on. I guess just not a lot of high or marquee matchups, so players might not have been as prepared. But they had some trouble against a very bad San Diego State team. They turned the ball over. I know DJU had, I think, 2 interceptions against San Diego State, and the San Diego State defense is not good. So this is Oregon State's kind of first real matchup, as Washington State kind of has an advantage because they already played Wisconsin, which is a Big Ten team. But I certainly think on paper, Washington State passes, or what am I trying to say? They kind of pass the eye test on paper. But if you watch Oregon State, I think they definitely, on the reality, I don't know what I'm trying to get here, but the reality eye test, when you watch them, Oregon State definitely passes that. You watch their offensive line, it has to be right up there with Oregon. They got some big physical dudes who can move. You got DJU, who just looks like a beast. He's a stout guy. There's a couple of plays I was watching some clips, and there'd be plays where their running backs running out, Damian Martinez, the running back, and DJU's actually, he's leading the way blocking for Damian Martinez. So yeah, I mean, you don't see that every day, and he was having his way with them too. He was not intimidated at all of those linebackers and quarterbacks. I mean, it was San Diego State, so a little bit different caliber of talent. But to end my synopsis here, I think Oregon State definitely has the better defense here. Cameron Ward, I list a lot of positives he has, but one of his negatives is that he is the highest self-inflicted QB rate hurry, if that makes sense. So he holds on to the ball for a little too long sometimes. And Oregon State's D-line is really good. They have 26 tackles for loss this season. When you look at kind of flipping back over. I'm going back and forth here, but when you look at Oregon State though, offensively, in the red zone they are 11-11, so very good red zone team. But both defenses do struggle in the red zone. So look for in this game, if a team reaches the red zone, it's probably going to be a touchdown. It's probably pretty good for them. But kind of been all over the place with this review of this game. But it's Wazoo. It's in Pullman. I think there's some magic there, no doubt. And I really like this Washington State team. I think Washington State not just covers, but wins the game.
Yeah. Kind of unfortunate the timing of the game.
Yeah, I know.
Just because, I mean, no one wants to go against Notre Dame and Ohio State, but then technically you have Iowa and Penn State too, who's on a major network, and that's top 25 game too. So yeah, kind of unfortunate for both these programs because like these are two teams that don't really get a lot of limelight, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying with Washington State. I think they could be a sneaky good team. I mean, look, they blew up Colorado State. I don't know. Are we calling Colorado State kind of good now because they took Colorado to double overtime last week?
There definitely were people saying that about how good they are.
Yeah, they beat them by like 30.
Yeah.
Let me double check that. They beat them by 26.
Yeah, 51-24.
Beat Wisconsin by double digit or by 9, almost double digits. So yeah, I think people could be sleeping on Washington State a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, though, I wouldn't mind seeing Oregon State win just because I feel like I couldn't even tell you the last time Oregon State was relevant. Mm-hmm. Like genuinely, like I don't know. Like I feel like they've just been terrible forever. Washington State had a run during the Mike Leach era where they kind of got relevant and back on the scene a little bit. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and I could actually see Washington State in this spot. They've looked pretty good. I think they've flown under radars. Washington State's kind of a weird place to play. I don't know what town it's in Washington. Pullman. Yeah, I think that's like I don't know. I don't know anything about Washington, but I think it's like a smaller town. It's a small stadium. It might be the smallest Power 5 stadium in the country. So it's just kind of a weird place to play, I think. It just seems like teams sometimes go there and have some issues. So yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I'd like to see Oregon State win personally, just because, again, I enjoy seeing like these programs that we don't really ever talk about. It's kind of fun to see them rise up. 14 seems maybe a little high for them, but yeah, I would agree with you. I actually kind of think Washington State in this spot.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to the last two games, we have, before we get to the night's most marquee matchup, we have number 24 Iowa traveling to Happy Valley, taking on the number 7 Penn State Nittany Lions. Penn State's 14.5 point favorite. We have the over/under at 40. This game, just to kick off, we got a lot to tackle with this game, but I really happy to hear it's CBS, and I've always thought CBS has had one of the premier just kind of presentations and kind of their dynamics. I think their announcers are always really good when I watch SEC, those SEC matchups in the afternoon and night. But yeah, Brad Nessler on the call, and he hasn't called the Iowa game, and it was back. And if you're an Iowa fan, it was back in Slicker the Kicker times where he made that call when Slicker had like a field goal to win. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Penn State, but I can't. It was years ago. So good to see him making the call for the Hawks. I think that's gonna be a really cool element to add on to the game. But so when we look at the matchup, so Iowa is 14-17 against Penn State. They're actually tied right now. They're 11-11 as conference foes. So kind of interesting stat there. Historically, this game has been very close. When they played, Iowa's won the past two. They went to State College in 2020, and they actually beat Penn State pretty good. It wasn't a night game, wasn't a whiteout game. I think it was an afternoon game. They won by about 20, and then they won in 2021 by was not. It was a lot closer in that game. So Iowa, you got a lot of you got a lot of different elements for Iowa. You got Iowa, they're wearing new uniforms for the first time, or this style uniforms for the first time. They're wearing black pants, which if you haven't seen the look, I think it's going to look pretty sweet. I've seen like some pictures and stuff. I think they're going to look pretty cool. But a lot of question marks moving into the day. There's rain is forecasted. There's a 60% chance of rain that night. So that's going to significantly affect the outcome of this game. But for Iowa in particular, I think there's a lot of question marks. Is Cade McNamara, is he ready to go? He ran a couple times against Western Michigan. He scrambled and he looked very hobbled. He did not look 100%. So that's definitely a question mark. What's the status on him? He said he was feeling great last week, but that clearly wasn't true by the way he performed. Another question: will freshman LaShawn Williams, how's he gonna adapt to this new prime time game? Is he ready for the spotlight? He certainly showed last week he was, and I'm kind of confident that he will do well because I think Liddell Betts, Iowa's running back coach, I think he's as good as it gets. You kind of look at the situation right now at Iowa; they're in their third string running back, and there's not really a whole lot of concern with LaShawn. I think people feel pretty good about him making an impact. I think that just goes to show how good a job Betts does. As you know, he was a former NFL running back, but how well he develops talent kind of in their system. So that's definitely an ode to him. But but at the same time, he's a freshman. Is he going to be able? Could be wet conditions. Is he going to be able to hold the ball? I think he does get it done, but that could be something that could affect the game. And then also my last question mark, and then we still got Penn State to cover and stuff here, but I'll let you jump in after this one. Can the defense or can they fix the secondary issues from last week? As you know, they gave up 2 huge passes last week in the first half, and they were not looking like the old Iowa defense. In the second half, they certainly came out, made some adjustments. I don't think Western Michigan scored in the second half, but however, that first half did not look good. So I think Phil Parker, they're going to really look at this film moving into this week, and they're going to fix those issues. So hopefully that won't happen again. But they're certainly going against a guy with way more talent than what they just saw this past week.
Yeah, I think if the conditions are rainy, I don't think that's a good thing for Iowa because they haven't really run the ball that well this year. Penn State's got a couple really good running backs. I think that'd be great for an under bet over under 40 points. I think if it's rainy and both teams are going to run the crap out of the ball, then hammer the under. Mm-hmm. But I think Iowa needs I think they need nicer conditions because I think their best offensive player is Cade McNamara. So I think they need him to be able to throw the ball. He didn't play very well last week against Western Michigan, but he's played decent given his kind of leg injury that he's been dealing with here the first couple of weeks. And they played okay against Iowa State and okay in week 1 against Utah State too. A little inconsistent, but again, he's in a new system. But I think it comes down to, they need Cade to play really well. They lost their starting tight end last week. Yeah. That hurts. They do have Eric All from Michigan that came with Cade. He's obviously a stud. They haven't really utilized him, I don't feel, a ton thus far in the season, but this is obviously a great opportunity for him to step up in a high-profile game like this. So, and that's one nice thing about having guys like Cade and Eric is they came from Michigan, played on a playoff team in Michigan. So, they have experience in these high-profile games. Those are 2 guys that I don't think will be scared of the moment. So, yeah, I think Iowa's, needless to say, it's 2 touchdown underdog. Definitely a long shot here. Like I said, I think Iowa needs nicer weather. The only thing I'll throw in is Iowa's defense, it appears to be pretty legit again this year. You and I watched that Penn State-Illinois game last week. I wasn't really that impressed with Penn State for most of that game. Illinois had some really bad turnovers. They actually were driving on Penn State a couple times and then just credit to Penn State's defense to a degree, but man, Illinois had some bad turnovers. The quarterback made some bad throws, basically threw it right to Penn State. So I'm just saying, I think Iowa's better than Illinois. And I think if Illinois takes care of the football a little better last week, then that's a lot closer of a game. Penn State would still win, but it's certainly a more competitive game. So it's going to take the perfect game for Iowa to beat Penn State this year. I don't think they're a better football team. But if everything falls into place, if Drew Aller for some reason doesn't play as well, Iowa's defense really gets after them, then who knows, right? It could open up. But I think Iowa needs good conditions. They need a big performance out of Cade, and they probably need like a pick six type. You know what I mean? They're going to have the defense come through big. Obviously, win special teams, all that stuff.
Yeah, they're going to have to win the turnover battle for sure if they want to have a chance. But also interesting, people love to show, I've seen on Twitter a lot with Eric All and Cade McNamara. I think there was like connection when a whole different dynamic team with Michigan, but they connected for like a game-winning touchdown in Happy Valley when they were at Michigan, I'm pretty sure. So they have that experience, they have that confidence going in. But wideouts, in Penn State, they're no joke. That's a very hostile environment. If you're not ready to go, it can eat you up. Minnesota found that out firsthand last year. They got absolutely swallowed in the moment. But no, I had a couple notes though for Penn State. Like you said, they really struggled with Illinois. You can make excuses for Penn State, that first conference road trip and any win on the road in Big Twin or in the Big Ten is a good win. And it's a tough win, which there's some truth to that. But yeah, like you said, 5 Illinois turnovers, and it was still pretty close game for most of the game. Illinois was kind of right in there. Offensively, they were just handicapped. They couldn't do anything. Drew Aller, he had a bad game. Turned the ball over for the first time for Penn State. They had not turned the ball over in those 3 games. Could be bad for Iowa. Is he due for a big game here? We'll see. Certainly, he's a younger quarterback. He's a sophomore. When you look at Cade McNamara, he's got a little more experience. He's a senior. Cade definitely has that going for him. But there's a couple interesting streaks that Penn State has. Penn State, so they've scored 30 or more points in 10 straight games, which is the longest streak in the country right now. They've also they've had at least 6 tackles for loss in 11 games, which is another record. So they got those 2 streaks going for them. And defensively too, I do think defensively these teams are pretty similar, even though Penn State has a lot more high profile guys. They got NFL guys at every level. Abdul Carter, Kalen, and Kobe King. They have 2 brothers that play in the secondary for them. And then they have Chop Robinson, who he was getting a lot of talk in preseason, but really has had a slow start. He hasn't done much. It's really been Abdul Carter. But definitely Penn State has the more high-profile guys. But I think Iowa's right there with them because both teams allow 170 yards per game. So very similar there. Penn State, though, they're tied for the second most sacks in the Big Ten. I think they're right there with Ohio State, I want to say. But Iowa's dead last with 3 sacks in the Big Ten. So Iowa, not great there. But defensively, are the Hawks going to be able to stop like what you said? Their 2 running backs, Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. They're strong runners. They break that first tackle. That 208 rushing yards per game for Penn State. That's 3rd highest in the Big Ten. But offense, when you look at both teams' offenses, and I know we've kind of gone through this a little bit, but that's where things differ tremendously. Penn State averages 470 yards per game, and Iowa's just at around 300 yards per game. The stat that makes it even worse is, like you said, Luke Lachey, he's out for the season. Luke Lachey is responsible for over 1/3 of those offensive yards. So not very good news for the Hawks. Someone's going to have to step up there. But yeah, no, I really want to say Iowa, but I think they're just outmatched here. I think because of the conditions, I think I like Iowa to cover. I think 14.5 might be a little too much. I think Kirk's really going to have the boys or the Hawkeyes ready to go. But I just think this Penn State team, they kind of down week last week. I think they're going to be ready to go. They're going to be ready to make some noise. But yeah, did you have anything else?
No, I agree. I think I'd probably take Penn State here. I do like the under too, especially knowing that the weather might not be ideal.
Yeah, I mean that's Iowa's only chance. If it gets over 40, Iowa lost.
Yeah.
But all right, our last game of the day, at least that we're reviewing. There's some other games that kick off after, but the most marquee matchup of the day, the game everyone's talking about. I want to say it's game day. Number 6 Ohio State traveling down to West Bend.
South Bend.
South Bend taking on number 9 Notre Dame. This is gonna be an insane matchup. To start out, Ohio State last week, if you saw their game, 7 minutes to go, 14-10 against Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky was holding their own. They were in fact, I think they were about to drive down and put one in Ohio State and go up by 3. However, Western Kentucky turns it over. So if you're still following along, Ohio State, they get the ball with, I think it was like 7 minutes expired. So there's like 8 minutes left on the clock. Ohio State goes on to score 27 points consecutively in those 8 minutes. So before you know it, the second quarter, it was 14-10. Now it's 42-10 going to halftime. So Ohio State, they definitely showed their explosive prowess there. I think it's going to kind of be up to Kyle McCord. He has his first real road game. I know he went to Indiana, but I mean, really. So I guess you could say that too. He's been to maybe give a little bit of confidence. He's already played a game in Indiana, but whole 2 different atmospheres, you could probably argue. But is he going to let the game come to him? He certainly has 2 great receivers, arguably top 10 receivers in the NCAA. Marvin Harrison, who probably the best guy, and then Emeka Egbuka. I can't, but he's also a very solid player for them. So I'm really interested to see how Kyle McCord comes out. If, like what you said, if the lights are too bright for him, or maybe he kind of has his breakout game.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the X factor. Well, I think you could also make the X factor. Ohio State's typically pretty good at pass protection. So I think, if Notre Dame's able to get a lot of pressure on him and cause him stress early in the game, then I think that'd be a great thing for Notre Dame. But yeah, I think if Ohio State's offensive line protects him well and then he can complete some passes and get some confidence, that's going to be huge for Ohio State. So I think Notre Dame needs to really come out and jump him early. They really need to try and rattle him, shake his confidence up. He's been getting better. There's no doubt about it. From Indiana to Western Kentucky here last week, he's definitely improved. Now, he's not playing that high quality competition. I don't care what anyone says. Western Kentucky's not that good. So, yeah, this is by far and away his biggest test. He's, going to Notre Dame, primetime game. Yeah, it's going to be an insane environment. Nothing, he's never played anything like this before. So, yeah, he's he is kind of the X factor, I think, along with the Ohio State offensive line and their ability to protect him. Because like I said, if they can't protect him and he's under pressure, Notre Dame's getting to him, then I think, huge advantage to Notre Dame. But again, if Ohio State protects him and he's able to complete some early passes, then, look out. Ohio State's got a ton of weapons they can utilize.
Right. And yeah, I think, that's definitely got to be a focus for Notre Dame. But it doesn't really seem like Notre Dame has that great of a pass rush. They have the ex Ohio State player, Joan Baptiste, I want to say. I think he's number 1 for Notre Dame. So they have him. I know he got in the backfield a couple of times when I've watched, but not necessarily a great pass rushing team. But that could change against Ohio State. But speaking of last week though, with Notre Dame, they certainly did not have a dominating win. I mean, if you look at the final score, maybe you could argue, but throughout the game, it was pretty close against Central Michigan. I know Notre Dame did have some key guys. They had their linebacker out last week, and he's kind of a key leader on the defense, and he should be back for this week. So I know that's going to be a big addition for them. But yeah, I think it was. You can't read too much into it, but also you kind of do. They kind of struggled against Central Michigan. And Central Michigan, I'm looking at a couple stats. They're known to have one of the worst secondaries in FBS football. And I know Sam Hartman. I don't know what he finished up with, but wasn't exactly picking apart the Central Michigan defense like you would think. So, I don't know. Is Sam Hartman, is he going to finally throw his first pick? I think he's had 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. We'll see. Ohio State definitely by far is going to be the best defense they've seen. Really, too, I'm curious to see how the Notre Dame O-line holds up against Ohio State's defensive line. Ohio State's defensive line is crazy with their pressures. I'm a little worried about that for Notre Dame, because if you watch at least the first part of that NC State was getting some crazy pressure on Notre Dame. And I know Notre Dame's supposed to be known for their stout offensive line, but it was a little worrisome seeing NC State getting through there so quick. But I another guy that I think though will be the X factor for this game. I think Kyle McCord's the most important, but I think Audric Estime too, just being the nation's rushing leader. How is he going to look against Ohio State's great defense? He's definitely a tough guy to bring down. I'm kind of curious to see how he does against that level of competition, if he can keep his numbers going up, or maybe I would guess Ohio State's game plan is probably to keep him compressed a little bit. But yeah, no, it's going to be a great matchup. A lot of things to watch. It's going to be hard to choose between which two games, or if you do have a setup where you can watch two games, which two games you want to watch. Is it, obviously you're probably going to want to have this game on, but is it Oregon State, Washington State, or is it Iowa, Penn State? Kind of hard to choose. But yeah, no, I think though, final prediction for this game. The more I look into it, honestly, I like Ohio State. I think the public, it seems like kind of strange that Ohio State's favored, because it seems like everything I've seen, everybody really likes Notre Dame. So I feel like it's almost one of those games where I think Ohio State actually could pull it out. But no, if I had to pick right now, I'm going with Notre Dame. They have more experience, better quarterback, better run game, and yeah, I think Notre Dame.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of like with what you said. Better quarterback, more experienced quarterback, at home. But I will be curious to see how Notre Dame's offense stacks up. Ohio State's defense, while the Ohio State offense has kind of been ramping up, the Ohio State defense has been really good. So I'll be curious to see how Notre Dame's offense looks against that. They've thus far this season been able to run and throw the ball kind of at will. So this will be a good test for them. But I've been riding the Notre Dame bandwagon pretty hard since week 0. So I'm gonna stick with them this week. But that's gonna be a tough one. I heard some stat Notre Dame hasn't beat Ohio State since like 1930 something.
Oh yeah, 1936. Yeah.
Yeah, and like in the last close to 20 seasons, Notre Dame's like 4-15 or something like that against top 10 opponents.
Yeah.
So it's a huge game for Notre Dame. I think they looked really good. I think Hartman's been the X factor for him so far this season. That's the piece they've been missing. I feel like is a legit quarterback, and he seems to meet that. But at the same time, I don't think Sam Hartman's really played in a game like this before. You know, he wasn't playing these games at Wake. Wake, you know, he made Wake. They were a respectable program, but they weren't playing in games like this. This is a next level game for Sam Hartman. Top 10 game on NBC. So there's something to be said about how he's going to look too. I know he's got a lot of experience, but again, it's different having just a lot of experience in general versus having a lot of experience in these super high profile moments. So I'm going to go with Notre Dame because I've been on the bandwagon, but yeah, I 100% could see it going either way. I could also see Ohio State going in and McCord plays well and the Ohio State playmakers go crazy. And I could see a world in which they win by double digits at Notre Dame and just quiet everybody down. That'd be a very Ohio State thing to do, but I'm hoping it doesn't happen. I'm sticking with Notre Dame.
Yeah. Because Ohio State, they do have one of the best, statistically, one of the best secondaries in college football. So that'll be interesting to see. And then I almost forgot my point I was about to bring up. I think another huge kind of factor to bring to this game is Marcus Freeman. I think he has a lot of ammunition from last year, kind of after they weren't throttled by Ohio State, but they beat them by double digits. So I certainly think he has ammunition for his team to come in there motivated for sure. I mean, they're already gonna be plenty motivated, but just kind of from last year, they got beat down by this team. But yeah, I mean, two completely different teams from last year, so it's hard to compare. You look at the two quarterbacks that played last year for Notre Dame. It was Tyler Buchner and I want to say Drew Pine. And you look at where those quarterbacks are at now. Drew Pine, I couldn't even tell you where he's at. I know he's at a Group of 5 school, not doing too well. But yeah, I know. We've been hyping this week up for a while. It's finally here. It's going to be exciting to see how this Saturday plays out. I think there's going to be some huge changes to the AP Top 25. There's probably going to be huge upset that no one's calling for that happens every Saturday. I mean, it's college football, but no. So yeah, so that does it. That's our 10th game. We appreciate you guys watching. Make sure that you subscribe. We have a college football breakdown each week of the college football season. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you see it. But yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one.